She set my house on fire. My pregnant wife was still inside, choking, screaming, burning. I dragged her out with my bare hands, skin blistering, while Karen watched from across the street, smiling. That night, I walked into her home. I zip-tied her to a chair, and I pressed a red-hot wedding ring into her cheek until the smell of her skin filled the room. But that scar? That wasn't the punishment. The real sentence? That's what made the whole neighborhood explode. You're not ready for what came next. I thought I had left the battlefield behind. After years of tactical deployments, dusty outposts, and orders barked through static radios, all I wanted was silence. A small home, a steady roof, a safe place for my wife, especially now that she was 7 months pregnant. But peace is fragile in a neighborhood run by power-hungry cowards disguised as neighbors. Her name was Karen Matthews. She didn't knock. She hammered. 3 sharp pounds on the front door that morning echoed like gunfire. I opened it to find her standing there in a cream suit, clipboard in hand, red lipstick like a war flag. "Mr. Rivers," she said without looking at me, "the HOA has reviewed your property. That thing on your porch." She gestured with her pen toward the wheelchair ramp and the elevator by the side entrance. "They're in violation." I didn't speak. Not yet. She kept going. "And the widened doorway? The exterior rails? The modified bathroom window? None of it conforms to community aesthetic. You have 7 days to remove or revise it all." I exhaled slowly. "My wife is pregnant. She's recovering from surgery. The ramp and lift are medically necessary." Karen looked past me into the hallway, where a small walker leaned against the wall. Her lips curled. "Then maybe you should move to a place more appropriate for people like her." I stepped forward, not threatening, just firm. "You're done here." Karen backed up a step, but her smirk never faded. "You think this is over?" she said. "You think that ramp gives you immunity? This neighborhood has standards, and I intend to enforce them." She turned and walked away, and that's when I knew. This wasn't a neighbor. This was a threat in heels. That night while my wife slept, her hand resting gently over our unborn son, I sat alone in the dark, watching the footage from our doorbell camera. Watching Karen's face, her voice, her smirk. Then I stood, grabbed my gear bag from the attic, and pulled out a device I hadn't touched in 6 years. A military-grade voice recorder, the size of a postage stamp. The war wasn't over. It had just changed zip codes. The letter came the next morning. Not an email, not a notice on the HOA portal. A thick envelope taped to our door like a threat. Final warning. HOA compliance violation was printed in bold red across the top. Inside, 7 printed photos of our home, each one circled with a red Sharpie. The ramp, the elevator lift, the widened doorframe, even the blue-painted reserved spot in front of our garage for my wife. Each item was labeled, "Visually disruptive. Not in keeping with community standard. Decreases neighborhood property value." Karen didn't just hate accommodations. She hated visibility. An hour later, I opened the door again and found a stack of HOA violation tickets stuffed into our mailbox, each handwritten, each signed K. Matthews. 12 citations in 2 days. Unapproved railing color. Trash bins visible, 7:42 p.m. Inappropriate window decal. Non-standard mailbox knob. She was documenting our home like it was a crime scene. And our neighbors? They watched from behind blinds. Cars slowed down as they passed, but no one stopped. No one asked if we needed help. Later that day, while my wife rested with a cold compress on her back, someone spray-painted "Clean it up" across our driveway. Karen showed up 30 minutes later with a camera. "I'm documenting neglect," she said flatly. "For the record." I stared at her. "You're behind this." She smiled. "Prove it." That night, I installed a second recorder under the eaves of her porch. I wasn't just documenting her anymore. I was baiting her, and she took the bait faster than I expected. By the next morning, our mailbox was smashed in, the blue paint defaced, and a typed letter appeared in our yard that simply read, "Disabled entitled." I saw red. Not just fury, clarity. Karen wasn't just abusing her power. She was targeting my wife's condition. She was testing how far she could push. And now, she had my answer. It happened on a Tuesday. The sky was clean, quiet, no storm, no freak wiring, no forgotten candle. But the fire that swallowed our home, that wasn't chance. That was Karen. It started with smoke, thick, bitter, slithering through the hallway vents like a warning. I was in the kitchen heating soup for my wife. She was upstairs, resting. 7 months pregnant, swollen ankles, could barely walk without support. When I smelled it, I didn't think. I moved. I threw the pot across the stove and sprinted toward the stairs. "Emma!" Her voice was faint, panicked. I charged up, 2 steps at a time, coughing as smoke poured down the hall like black water. Flames curled around the nursery doorframe. The ceiling cracked. I kicked our bedroom door open and found her curled on the floor, clutching her belly, eyes wide with terror. "I can't breathe." I didn't wait. I hauled her into my arms, wrapped her in a blanket, and turned. The hallway was half gone. I barreled through it anyway. Wood splintered beneath us. My skin burned from the heat. I felt the floor buckle behind my heels as I jumped down the last 3 steps and crashed through the front door, carrying her through a cloud of fire. We hit the lawn just as the windows exploded behind us. Neighbors screamed. Phones came out. No one came near. Paramedics arrived 6 minutes later. They pumped oxygen into Emma's lungs, checked the baby's heartbeat. She was wheezing, dazed, barely able to speak. One medic whispered to me, "Another 60 seconds. She wouldn't have made it." And that was when I saw her. Karen, standing across the street, arms crossed, hair perfect, smiling. Smiling. I stormed toward her, hands clenched, eyes locked. "You did this." She didn't flinch. "Excuse me? Don't play stupid. You've been circling our house like a vulture for days, and now it burns?" She raised an eyebrow. "If I had done anything, you think I'd be here watching? No, you'd be celebrating." She stepped closer, lowered her voice. "You really think you're special? That your little ramp, your fat pregnant wife, and your pity party exempt you from rules?" I snapped. "Say one more word about my wife and I swear to God—" "What? You'll hit a woman?" "No," I growled. "I'll bury the war I buried for 10 years. In your front lawn." Karen's smile faltered, but she didn't back down. She just said, "Prove it," and walked away, heels clicking against the asphalt, like punctuation marks on a threat. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in the ruins. And when the fire crew handed me the report, accelerant detected near the back generator, I didn't feel shock. I felt confirmation. Karen lit the match. Now I was going to light hers. Would you have stopped at this point, or gone even further? Comment yes if you're still watching. I need to know who's still with me. They released Emma from the hospital after 2 days. She couldn't climb stairs, could barely speak without coughing. The baby was safe, for now. But I saw it in her eyes. The fear had taken root. I set her up in a temporary apartment 5 blocks down, away from the wreckage. Then I went back to the ashes, back to what was left. And I waited. It didn't take long. On the 3rd day, while sifting through scorched beams and shattered tiles, I found a warped piece of metal embedded in what used to be the porch rail. It wasn't ours. It was a cheap aluminum gas spout cap, the kind that fits on a red fuel canister. Fresh, melted at the edge. And that was the moment I knew. This wasn't just suspicion. It was evidence. I sprinted home, grabbed the recorder I'd placed inside Karen's mailbox 2 weeks earlier, the one I'd nearly forgotten. It still worked. I synced it to my laptop and hit play. 3 beeps. A door creaked. Then, her voice. "Just a little gasoline around the generator. No one even saw me. If it burns fast, they'll never know. It's just an ugly house anyway." Laughter. "One less eyesore." I leaned back, heart hammering. It wasn't just a confession. It was a death sentence, Signed, stamped, and sealed by Karen herself. I stared at the screen, and then I said aloud, slowly, calmly, like a man whispering his own oath. "You want war, Karen? Then I'll give you the kind they don't teach in HOA meetings." In the silence that followed, I copied the recording to 3 drives. One for the cops, one for the press, and one for me. Because the justice system would take weeks. But I only needed one night. I didn't sleep that night, while Emma curled up on a hospital cot, whispering to our unborn son through a sore throat. I sat at the edge of her bed, holding the recorder like it was a detonator. And maybe it was. At 1:10 a.m., I got in the truck. Not the one I drive to get groceries. The old one. Matte black. No license plate, no GPS. I parked 3 blocks down from Karen's house and killed the engine. The world went still. Crickets. A porch light flickering 2 houses over. Her house sat under a perfect moon. Quiet, smug, like the woman who ran it. I approached on foot, boots silent on wet pavement, every movement deliberate. I didn't bring fire. Not yet. I brought clarity. At 2:47 a.m., I slid a crowbar under the rear gate of her privacy fence and popped it open with a practiced twist. One motion. Clean. The sliding glass door behind her kitchen was cracked an inch. Typical Karen, too proud to lock the world out, too stupid to realize who was walking in. She didn't hear me enter. She didn't see me step into the living room. But she turned the second I chambered around. Click. She froze. Standing at the foot of her staircase. Silk robe, wine glass in hand. Hair up, makeup perfect. She opened her mouth. I raised the barrel. "Don't speak." She blinked. "What?" I said, "Shut your goddamn mouth." She stared at the gun, then at me. "You're crazy. You set my house on fire. You almost killed my wife and unborn child. I'm not crazy. I'm focused." She tried to laugh. "There's no proof." I stepped forward and threw something at her feet. She looked down, a melted, blackened fuel cap. She stepped back, eyes twitching. "I should shoot you," I said. "Right here. No jury, no trial, just fire for fire." She whispered, "You wouldn't." "You're right," I said, and lowered the gun an inch. "I'm not here to end your story. I'm here to rewrite it." I grabbed her by the wrist, yanked the wine glass from her hand, and smashed it against the floor. Then I shoved her into the nearest chair, zip-tied her hands behind it in one clean motion. She started to scream. I jammed a towel into her mouth. "You lit the match," I hissed. "Now sit still, because I'm about to teach you what heat feels like." In the corner of the room, I laid out a steel tray. On it, a roll of duct tape, a pair of surgical gloves, and something small and black. My wedding ring, warped by fire, blackened at the edge, but still intact. I placed it beside the portable torch. Karen shook her head, eyes wide, muffled cries rising from her throat. I didn't flinch. I pulled the gloves on, checked the torch's fuel. "You smiled when my house burned," I said. "Now I want you to carry that smile. Forever." And as the torch roared to life, a soft blue flame dancing in the dark, I picked up the ring. The ring glowed orange now. It pulsed like a heartbeat at the end of my pliers. Warped, jagged, still etched with soot and memory. Karen thrashed in the chair, eyes wild, muffled shrieks piercing the silence behind the towel I'd shoved into her mouth. I stepped forward. Her legs kicked. The chair wobbled. "Stay still," I said coldly, "or I'll brand both sides." Her heels scraped against the tile. Tears ran down her cheeks, cutting lines through her makeup. But I saw no regret. Only fear. Only rage that someone, me, had finally cornered her. "You wanted attention," I continued. "You wanted control. You used your clipboard like a sword, and HOA rules like bullets." I crouched beside her, holding the glowing ring just inches from her face. The heat shimmered in the air between us. "You wrote up my wife for being disabled. You fined us for trying to survive. You laughed while my house burned." I tilted the pliers slightly. The ring hummed in the silence. You don't care about community standards. You care about dominance. You want people to kneel to your fake authority. She shook her head violently, screaming behind the gag. You don't get to scream now. You silenced everyone else in this neighborhood for years. I'm just returning the favor. I grabbed her by the chin. Her skin was cold with sweat. This isn't revenge. This is accountability. And then I pressed the ring to her cheek. The sound was wet and sizzling, like bacon on a pan. Her body arched. The chair shook violently. She screamed through the towel. Raw, animal, useless. I held it there for 3 full seconds. Then I yanked it away. The skin beneath hissed, bubbled. A red, blistered circle now marred the porcelain smoothness of her left cheek. She sobbed, choking behind the towel. I didn't look away. That's not a scar, I said. That's a signature. One you'll carry every time you step outside. Every time someone asks, "What happened to your face?" You'll remember what you did to my family. I stood, dropped the ring onto the tile. It hit with a soft clink, then spun to a stop between us. Karen slumped forward in the chair, trembling. I took the printout from my pocket, the one with her typed message. One less eyesore. I duct-taped it to her chest. You wanted to erase us? Now your face will do the remembering. I turned off the torch, packed up the gloves, and walked to the back door. Before I stepped out, I paused and looked over my shoulder one last time. This isn't over, Karen. I'm not here to kill you. I'm here to let the whole world see what kind of monster you are. Then I vanished into the dark, leaving behind the ring, the scar, and the message. Some wounds are meant to be seen. By the time the sun came up, the scar was already online. A neighbor, probably one of the few brave enough to peek through the blinds, had filmed Karen staggering out of her house, still zip-tied, still bleeding, with the word monster scribbled across the duct-taped paper flapping against her chest. The video hit Facebook, then Nextdoor, then local news. I didn't post it. I didn't need to. Truth spreads faster when it's soaked in blood and shame. At 9:12 a.m., I called the police. My name is Jacob Rivers, I said. I have evidence regarding a felony arson and attempted double homicide. There was a pause on the line. Are you the man from the video? No comment. Just send someone to 47 Pinehurst Lane. I'll be waiting out front. I have proof. I hung up. Then I slid a USB drive into my pocket. The recording, the voice, the laugh. Karen's exact words from 2 nights ago. If it burns fast, they'll never know. It's just an ugly house anyway. By 10:06 a.m., 2 patrol cars and a detective were standing in front of Karen's porch. She was seated in a lawn chair, wrapped in gauze, sunglasses trembling over her cracked cheekbone. Neighbors had begun to gather, quietly, cautiously. I stepped forward and handed over the USB. That's your confession. Arson, intent, malice, all of it. The detective nodded, inserted the drive into his tablet, and pressed play. Karen sat upright. You can't use that. That's illegal surveillance. You lit my house on fire, I said, voice rising. You nearly killed my wife and unborn son. I don't care if I recorded it from a goddamn moon satellite. Karen leapt from the chair, pointing wildly. He's lying. He tortured me. I stopped myself from doing worse, I snapped. Be grateful your own voice is what buries you. The detective lifted a hand, calm but firm. Ma'am, you're under arrest for felony arson and attempted homicide. She shrieked. This is a setup! No, I said, stepping closer, just loud enough for the neighbors to hear. This is a consequence. That was when the timer hit 0. Boom! Karen's house convulsed. The explosion tore through the rear walls, a fireball launching debris 20 feet into the air. Flames roared from the shattered kitchen windows. The crowd gasped. One neighbor screamed. Another ran for a hose, hopelessly. I stood still, hands by my sides, watching it burn. Karen dropped to the pavement, screaming, not from injury, but from the sudden realization that everything she built was gone. Not just her home, her image, her power, her false control. The detective looked at me, jaw tight. You had something to do with that? I didn't blink. No, but I know what it feels like to watch your life burn. I turned and walked away as the sirens wailed louder in the distance. Behind me, Karen sobbed beside her crumbling throne. The courthouse smelled like bleach and cold metal. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead. The air was thick with cheap cologne and tension. Karen sat 3 rows ahead of me at the defense table, shoulders stiff, hair wrapped in a silk scarf, face hidden behind oversized sunglasses and gauze bandages. But nothing could hide that scar. The room was packed. Neighbors, reporters, HOA board members pretending not to know her, and 2 camera crews stationed behind the aisle. The moment the judge entered, everyone rose, everyone sat, and the reckoning began. The prosecutor started by playing the audio recording. Karen's voice crackled through the court speaker system, painfully clear. Just a little gasoline around the generator. No one even saw me. If it burns fast, they'll never know. It's just an ugly house anyway. Laughter. One less eyesore. Gasps rippled across the room. One woman covered her mouth. Another, Mrs. Drayton from 2 houses down, whispered, "Oh my God." Karen didn't look up. She didn't have to. The burn on her face said enough. The prosecutor turned to the judge. "Your Honor, we are not simply talking about arson. We are talking about a calculated attempt to destroy a family's home, knowing full well that a pregnant woman was inside. This was hate-fueled, malicious, personal." Then it was my turn. I stepped up to the witness stand and adjusted the microphone. My palms were steady. My voice wasn't. "My name is Jacob Rivers. I'm a veteran, a husband, a father-to-be." I looked straight at Karen. "And the man whose wife you nearly killed because she had a wheelchair ramp and a widened doorway." Karen flinched slightly, the first real crack in her stone mask. "You didn't just burn my house, Karen. You torched everything I'd built to protect my family. You mocked my wife for limping, then tried to erase her existence, because she didn't fit your plastic mold of what a neighborhood should look like." I leaned forward. "But now the whole world sees you for what you are." The defense attorney stood, already sweating. He mumbled something about trauma, about how Karen had been pressured by HOA expectations and didn't mean for anyone to get hurt. The judge wasn't moved. He turned to Karen. "Miss Matthews, would you like to make a statement before sentencing?" She stood slowly, trembling. She croaked. "I made a mistake. I never meant for the fire to spread. I just wanted—" "Control," I said sharply. "You wanted submission." The judge slammed the gavel. "That's enough, Mr. Rivers." Karen sniffled, wiping beneath her sunglasses. "I've lost everything. My home, my board position, my reputation." The judge looked at her flatly. "You nearly killed a pregnant woman in her own home. You're lucky that's all you've lost." He shuffled his papers. "Karen Matthews, I hereby sentence you to 25 years in state prison for arson in the first degree, attempted homicide, and hate-based property destruction. You will serve a minimum of 18 years before you are eligible for parole." Silence. Then someone in the gallery whispered, "Good." Karen's knees buckled. The bailiff caught her arm as the cuffs snapped over her wrists. As she was let out, her scarf slipped for half a second. The burned ring-shaped scar on her cheek caught the light, and that was when the flashbulbs started. Outside the courthouse, a reporter shoved a mic in my face. "Mr. Rivers, any comment for the community?" I nodded. "Karen tried to destroy a home. But the truth is, she exposed a neighborhood. And now we get to rebuild it without fear." After the sentencing, I didn't go home. Not because I didn't have one, but because I wasn't ready to rebuild the house that nearly became a tomb. Instead, I drove to the vacant lot across from where our old home had stood. It had once been a dumping site for HOA landscaping debris. Broken bricks, mulch, rusted signs no one used. Forgotten. Ugly. Perfect. That afternoon, I stood on the cracked concrete and stared at the wild grass pushing through. I closed my eyes and let the silence fill me. And then I got to work. I used every cent of the settlement from Karen's civil lawsuit, not to restore what we had, but to build something better. Something that would outlast her scar, her rules, her name. A month later, ground broke on a new kind of home. Not just for me, for others like Emma. A sanctuary, a repair station, a safe haven disguised as a community center. Wheelchair-accessible doors, automatic ramps, air-purified rooms, a quiet clinic in the back for expectant mothers facing mobility challenges, a childcare nook with padded floors and soft lamps, and at the center of it all, a garden. Emma named it. The Garden of Fire. Because, she said softly, we walked through it, and we're still standing. The neighborhood changed too. Without Karen, the HOA fractured. People began showing up not to judge, but to help. The same neighbors who once looked the other way were now showing up with toolboxes, paintbrushes, trays of food. One man, a former HOA board member, brought his teenage son to volunteer. He whispered to me, "I wish I'd spoken up sooner." I just nodded. "You're speaking now." Even the local councilwoman came to visit. "You've turned something cruel into something vital," she said. "You didn't just rebuild a home, you redefined what community means." Emma and I moved into a small suite at the center, just next to the garden. At night, we'd sit outside beneath the string lights that neighbors had helped hang, and watch the wind push through the tall grass and wildflowers. She held my hand over her belly and whispered to our son, "This is where you'll grow up, where people protect each other instead of punishing them." I didn't cry often, but that moment cracked me. Because she wasn't just talking about the future, she was rewriting the past. One morning, a family arrived unannounced. A young couple, nervous, holding hands. Behind them, a small girl in a pink wheelchair. The father looked at the building, then at me. "Is this the place? The one from the news?" I nodded. "It's better than the news said." He hesitated. "We're tired of hiding. Is this a place where people like us belong?" Emma appeared at my side, smiling. "You already do." We watched as the girl wheeled herself toward the flowers. She reached out and touched one of the petals, bright orange, almost flame-like in the morning sun. Not everything heals the way you want it to. But sometimes, what grows from the ashes is stronger than what stood before. And sometimes, just sometimes, the fire doesn't end you. It refines you. They say scars fade with time, but not all of them are meant to disappear. Some remain, etched into skin, into memory, not as wounds, but as reminders of what we survived, and who we became. It's been almost a year since the fire. Our son was born on a calm morning in late spring, in one of the rooms we built ourselves. Emma named him Caleb, after her grandfather. He came out fists clenched, lungs strong, like he already knew what we'd been through to make a place for him. Every time I hold him, I remember the night I almost lost them both. Every breath he takes is a middle finger to the woman who tried to burn them out of this world. But we don't speak Karen's name anymore. Not in our house. Not in the garden. Not in front of Caleb. Because we don't build legacies on hate. We build them on survival. Karen's story didn't end when the cell door closed. Her image, the scar on her face, circulated for weeks. She filed appeals, claimed trauma, claimed persecution, but no one bought it. Even the HOA quietly erased her from their records. The bylaws she once weaponized were rewritten. Discrimination clauses were strengthened. Accessibility protections expanded. What she tried to suppress became law. Irony writes better than vengeance ever could. Sometimes I still wake up at 2:47 a.m., the exact minute I walked into her house. The smell of gasoline, the heat of the torch, the weight of the ring. And then I turn my head and see Emma asleep beside me, our son curled on her chest, and I remember why I didn't finish what I started. I didn't want her dead. I wanted her exposed. And I wanted the world to understand something. People like Emma don't ruin neighborhoods. People like Karen do. The Garden of Fire now has 20 permanent residents, families, caretakers, elders with walkers, mothers in recovery. We've planted new trees. The flowers bloom in wild spirals. There are no fences, no inspection notices, no compliance tickets taped to front doors. Only people, living, together, freely. The scar on Karen's cheek may never heal. But that's not the scar this story was about. The real scar was in this community. In the silence. The inaction. The way people looked the other way when someone abused power behind a title. That scar healed. Because someone finally stood up. Because a man who'd buried violence inside him for a decade decided to dig it up. Not to destroy, but to defend. And now, we move forward. One brick at a time. One flower at a time. One family at a time. Because the past may leave its mark. But it's what we build after the burn that lasts forever. Some stories aren't about victory. They're about survival. Not just walking away from the flames, but walking through them and choosing to build something better on the ashes. I didn't choose this war. I didn't ask for my home to be burned, for my pregnant wife to scream for help through black smoke, or for a woman drunk on power to try and erase everything we built, just because it didn't fit her version of perfect. But I did choose what came next, and that's where the real story begins. Because the truth is, pain doesn't give you power. Purpose does. Revenge fades. Scars eventually settle into skin. But what you do with your pain, that becomes legacy. I branded Karen with fire. Yes. But what truly ended her reign wasn't heat. It was exposure. It was truth. When a community sees cruelty for what it is, when people stop looking away, real change happens. That change didn't start with courtrooms. It started when someone finally said, "No more." So what's the lesson in all this? Don't let silence protect the ones who abuse power. Don't let fear stop you from defending what's right. And when the world tries to burn you down, rebuild. Louder. Brighter. With open doors and open arms. Because justice isn't always delivered in a courtroom. Sometimes it grows in a garden. Sometimes it's carried in the hands of a child who will never know how close he came to never being born. And sometimes, it lives in the people who refuse to stay quiet. If you watched this far, I want to hear from you. Comment below. Do you believe justice and mercy can live in the same story? Comment yes if you do. Comment no if you think some people don't deserve mercy at all. I read every word. And if this story moved you, even just a little, hit that like button, because it tells the algorithm this story mattered. Subscribe if you believe stories like this need to be told. And don't forget to turn on notifications, because this isn't the last time someone underestimated the wrong person. Stay strong, stay loud, and no matter what burns, keep rebuilding.